So, Hannah, today is Fat Tuesday.
Yes.
Usually this is a tradition, at least where we are from, where you eat really fatting donuts, essentially.
Punchkis.
Punchkis, yes. Polish donuts.
The Polish name is punchki. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't remember having them that often unless people brought them to, school.
Yes.
We never bought them.
Not really. I mean...
We're not Polish.
We're not Polish, but I mean, we had extended family that was Polish.
Right.
We had sauerkraut and kielbasa every Christmas, you know?
That's true. I don't think our family bought them, but I definitely have had them, for sure.
Now, I have to ask you if you know of King's cake.
Yes, it is a cake from New Orleans.
Yes.
That has a tiny figure in the middle of it.
A baby.
Yes.
It has a baby in it.
Yes. I've never had it.
I ate a King's cake today, Hannah.
How was it?
It was pretty good.
Did you find the baby?
So it's funny you say that. I had heard of this King's cake for the first time earlier this year. And so someone brought one today. It's decorated with purples and greens, and traditionally I think it's a little more cinnamon. This one was raspberry, but it's kind of like a Danish texture. Somebody had pre-cut the cake into slices, and I went up with someone I know from work, and we were looking at the cake, and you could just see a baby's head sticking out of one of the pieces of cake. And I was like, well, I don't want that, so I picked a different piece. But, how did that tradition get started? How did someone decide, you know what we're going to do? Hide a baby in a cake, and then whoever finds the baby must then buy the next cake.
All I know is it originated, I believe, out of New Orleans. I do believe also that certain places put other things besides a tiny baby. You can put, realistically, whatever you want in there.
Yes.
I say whatever you want because, obviously, there should be limitations.
Yeah.
I feel like we should do that for our birthday desserts. Hide something in the middle of the cake.
Yeah.
Whoever finds it.
I know people do that with, engagement rings.
Yeah, that seems dangerous to me.
Yeah, I would be nervous. If you're not expecting to find something...
Yes.
What happens if you swallow it?
At least with this cake, that's the point of the cake.
Yes,
so
you're expecting, the potential for there to be a baby in your mouth.
Oh,
baby
God.
Figurine.
Oh, God.
You know what to look for.
Jeez. Oh, my God. I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen. I always get worried when I see, people put rings, and I don't know if that happens it happens a lot in movies. To me, that seems one, it's dangerous.
It's
two,
dirty.
I can't imagine spending a bunch of
gross.
money on a ring just to put it. I know people put it in champagne.
Yeah, but even then, it's sticky.
Yeah, I think that might just be a movie.
I wouldn't want that.
Maybe
because then you have to put it on, and it's all gross. You don't even get to clean it.
You can suck it off.
Oh my God.
God, we need to rein this in. No, I just feel I don't even know where we're at. I personally wouldn't want that.
No.
But I'm also a person who's don't want any sort of big engagement whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it right now. I want the Jumbotron. No, I don't. That's a joke. That sounds like the absolute worst thing in the world to me. I certainly am sure I'm sure that there's people who want that, but the idea of somebody proposing to me in a stadium with thousands upon thousands of people, the pressure, if you're in that situation and you don't want to say yes, what are you supposed to do? You look like a huge bitch if you say no.
Or you have to say yes and then tell them no after you
leave.
That's probably what I would do.
You're put in an impossible situation. It's a lose-lose either way.
I feel bad saying this in case anyone's been proposed this way, but I kind of feel it's almost trapping someone in saying yes.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot easier to say no if it's a private moment.
Right.
And I think too, you have to be pretty certain to do it that way. You would hope that they would imagine the person's going to say yes. Because if you're a little unsure, I would much rather them do a private.
If you haven't talked about actually getting married before you're proposing to somebody, maybe think about having a conversation about that first.
Yeah, if you've never even mentioned marriage or the future, I would not recommend it.
Probably not a great idea.
I would be very...
But what do we know, Hannah? We're not married.
Well, clearly it's not... Clearly we can't take our advice. We're both single. I would be very unhappy, though, if someone proposed to me and we had never even, mentioned it.
Oh, I would say no.
Yeah.
If it's literally never been mentioned, no. That's a deal breaker.
Is a spider back?
No, it's just a fuzz.
Oh, okay.
There's a little piece of fuzz.
Oh, I see.
It's not the spider that stole Christmas.
Yeah.
He's dead.
Hopefully. We got so far from the...
We did. The spiders.
We started this off with Fat Tuesday.
Don't let the spiders steal your Fat Tuesday from you.
Turn him into ash on Wednesday. Hold on.
You gotta follow through if you're gonna do it.
You have failed.
Yeah, that wasn't following through.
Okay. You have failed this city.
Welcome. This is Research Rank Repeat. I'm one of your co-hosts, Alyssa.
And this is co-host Hannah.
And that was our attempt to introduce you to our new TV pilots episode focused on the one, the only, the Arrowverse, and Friends. Some of these shows are not in the Arrowverse.
Most of them are. Some are acquaintances.
The CW.
We'll call this the CW superhero shows.
The CW Superhero Pilot Spectacular.
We actually did, I believe, all the shows that are considered superhero shows that at some point were on the CW. We grew up kind of liking superhero movies.
Here's what I will say. We grew up watching superhero movies in popular media.
Okay, yes.
As in Tim Burton's Batman, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, You've got Chris Evans as, what's his Flaming Man?
Oh, from Fantastic Four.
What's his name?
I don't
Human
remember.
Torch.
Human Torch.
So, like, those movies, and then eventually got into Marvel.
Right.
When that started. We're in light. Superhero light. Especially on DC. All my knowledge comes from Young Justice.
Yeah.
And that's literally all I know.
Our brother used to watch, like,
and Teen Titans.
a Batman. There was, like, a Batman show.
Yes. Well, there's two. So there's Batman the Animated Series, and there's also Batman Beyond.
Right.
That was on Cartoon Network.
And Teen Titans,
and
yeah,
Teen
like
Titans.
you said. Most of these shows, I believe all of them take place in the DC universe.
Yes. They're not all on the same world.
No. They're certainly not. But they all are characters that
exist in DC Comics in some form.
Or original. Some of them have, like, original characters that were made for the show.
Yeah, for the show.
So just a little bit about CW, because one of these shows originally was on the WB. And we kind of went back and forth on whether or not we should do it, but the WB merged with UPN.
Right.
And created the CW.
Yes, which still exists today.
Which is still existing to this day. So technically the show is part of the CW. Did air for a couple seasons on what is the CW. What is known as the CW. That was like a Jeopardy.
What is the CW?
What is the CW? There was also one of the shows that originally started on CBS and then was moved to the CW after a season. But the CW has what is known as the Arrowverse. It started with the show Arrow. It includes a majority of these shows. Some of them technically aren't part of the Arrowverse. But basically what it is a lot of these shows do these crossovers every year. They do these big crossovers. Some of them are like 4 to 5 episodes, 4 or 5 different shows. Sometimes they'll pull characters from shows that aren't necessarily getting their own episode and bring them in. It's basically like Avengers.
Yes, but in TV show form.
They bring them all together to rid the world of evil.
Yes.
Worlds of evil.
Worlds of evil.
Yes.
Now, we wanted to do this mainly because we're cashing in on the fact that The Flash is premiering when this comes out.
Yeah,
So, we're looking for that sweet hashtag.
Hashtag the Flash.
Hashtag the Flash to really maybe give us a little boost of speed.
Oh.
Oh. Little flash.
Little flash.
Of energy.
Love being flashed.
No.
Oh.
I don't love being flashed. Okay. I mean, unless you're wanting that, then that's fine.
Consent.
Consensual
flashing. Consensual flashing.
Exactly.
It's Alyssa's kink.
Yeah. Yep. Sure is.
Oh God, that.
Sure is, Hannah. Right you are.
Right you are.
I don't remember. What were you talking about? I don't remember.
That we're cashing in on.
Oh, yes. Hannah and I are no strangers to a portion of these shows. So I got into it before you did.
And then you ditched, and I stayed around.
And then I ditched. So actually, I vaguely remember this show was recommended to me by a friend of the podcast who sent us our candy corn.
Oh, okay.
Our Thanksgiving candy corn. Thank you, friend. From what I can remember, we got Netflix my senior year of high school. Mm-hmm. So that opened the doors to, all the shows imaginable. And I think I was talking with this friend, and she was like, hey, you should watch this show Arrow. It's bow and arrow people. Man, he runs around the town and he shoots people with a bow and arrow. And I'm like, that sounds pretty cool. So I watched the first season, because that's all that was out. 2013 is when that would have been. And I was hooked. I watched the entire first season. I watched the entire second season. I told Hannah, I said, Hannah, watch this show. And then I watched about half the third season, and then I never picked it up again, and I never watched any of these shows ever again. I've seen the pilot to The Flash. I've seen bits and pieces of a few of these shows, but otherwise I was going in pretty blind to this.
Yeah. So like Alyssa said, I watched Arrow with her. Unfortunately, I watched all of Arrow.
I can't believe you watched the
It took me years and years and years to finally get through it.
It wasn't worth it.
I watched all of Supergirl.
Maybe more worth it.
Not with the ending.
Okay.
If I gotten the ending that I wanted, sure. I've watched part of Flash. I've never finished it. I've watched part of Legends of Tomorrow. I've seen a little bit of Batwoman, not much. I briefly started Smallville at one point and never finished it. The CW, unfortunately, they don't have the largest budget. I'll say it that way.
Largest.
Unfortunately, their budget is quite small compared to the major networks.
Yes.
And because of that, they don't necessarily have the biggest budgets to do a lot of insane scenes that you'd think of with superhero shows.
They also originally purposefully wanted minimalistic.
Right.
They wanted the gritty, humanistic. Hence why Arrow was the first one chosen, because he's literally just a man with a bow and arrow.
Right. I will say, though, some of the scenes and some of the stuff they do in these shows is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Even in some of these pilots, I was like, that's actually pretty good action sequences. But one of the things the CW gets a lot of negativity about is its writing.
Fan service,
and some of the actresses maybe not being the best.
Yeah. I believe there was also some issues with a showrunner.
Yeah.
Or creator.
There was something with one of he did multiple shows, I think.
Yeah.
Which
I think removed
that's kind of in every show network.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
What a surprise.
What a time to be alive.
Uh-huh.
It gets a lot of negative critique. I do think, though, that some of these shows, they do have very talented casts, and
I think it's a niche market that certain people love.
Yeah.
Some people love this type of show. For the most part, a lot of these shows follow very similar tropes for their pilot. So it was very interesting and almost even harder to rank these.
Yeah.
Because when we're doing things like comparing Pretty Little Liars to, Kyle XY.
Or 9 Lives of Chloe King.
It's very different show. It's almost easier to rank them because it's which one did I like the best? Whereas this one, it's who do I think did the best introduction to their character, to the superpower or whatever. So
yeah, I found it very hard to rank. Yeah. I had a clear couple favorites, and I had a clear bottom, but the middle was very I could have swapped them.
Yeah.
Why don't we swing in?
Swing in. I was gonna say shoot an arrow and bullseye.
Okay.
First, do we want to start with Smallville?
Yeah, let's go your order.
That's
actually a good idea.
Yeah, why not?
Okay. I believe Smallville is my show. Let me see.
Yes. It should be your show, because I did not do anything for it.
So Smallville was technically the first CW superhero show. It is not part of the Arrowverse.
But is it?
Well,
Tom Welling made
technically, yes, he did. Okay, fine. It technically could be considered part of the Arrowverse, but it was created before the Arrowverse was a thing. So Smallville started in 2001, and it ran to 2011. It had 10 seasons and 217 episodes, which is very crazy.
A lot.
I think that's one of the reasons why I did not finish the show, was because It was a big commitment.
That's fair.
It was rated 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb and a 78% on Rotten Tomatoes. The pilot aired on October 16th, 2001, and had 8.35 million views, which is actually a lot, but it was also
WB.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what...
And it was 2001.
When a lot of people watched.
Also, this is post 9/11.
There is a note about that.
There is, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So the director of this episode is David Nutter. He's actually, don't laugh, I knew you were going to laugh. That's his name. It's Nutter. He was a director for Game of Thrones. He did work on Game of Thrones.
Nice. What season?
I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea.
That's going to make a difference to how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Talking about season 4. Oh. Ooh.
Yeah, I'm not sure. After the 5th season, the WB and UPN merged to form CW, so the 6 through 10 are on the CW.
Okay.
The first 4 seasons focus on high school, and then season 5 through 10 focus on early adult years, so post-high school, some college, and then first job, beyond.
Yeah.
So originally this was proposed as a show about Bruce Wayne, which was going to be about Batman's journey, sort of similar to Clark's, like, his upbringing and stuff like that. The idea was turned down.
Yeah.
They didn't want the show.
Batman was pretty saturated in the market.
Right. Yeah. So then the series developers took that inspiration and pitched the show as examining what led Clark Kent, aka Superman, to become, like, the hero that he is. Early on, they didn't want to focus on, like, the superhero cape, fighting crime sort of thing. They wanted to focus on, like, who he was as a person, his core values. So after 7 seasons, the 2 main developers actually left the show with little explanation.
Oh.
And it's still kind of, like, unsure what exactly happened. There's kind of, like, rumors, but...
I wonder if just negotiations didn't work out or something like that.
So the pilot episode set a ratings record for a WB debut show when it came out. So over the 10 seasons, it averaged about 4.34 million people an episode, which is pretty good compared to a lot of these shows. When the show ended, it passed Stargate SG-1 as the longest-running North American science fiction series by episode count. And it's won Emmys, won Teen Choice Awards. The show came out pretty soon after 9/11. And a lot of the actors and actresses, like, later down the road had said that they were told by, like, a lot of veterans that they used this show as a distraction from combat.
Yeah.
They said that Clark and Smallville were kind of representative of, like, the American,
like, hometown American
red,
spirit.
white, and blue, like, that whole kind of American symbol, I guess. And so in 2021, Tom Welling announced that he and Michael Rosenbaum, who plays Lex Luthor, were developing an animated revival of Smallville.
Oh.
Which, you know, see how that goes.
Because Michael Rosenbaum has, like, a podcast.
Yeah.
And he interviews a lot of people in a lot of these, like, superhero shows. I don't, like, really listen to the podcast, but every once in a while a YouTube clip will show up and I'll be like, oh, yeah, I like Tom Welling.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I've written a summary.
All right.
My childhood crush, hold on, I already fucked it up.
It's okay.
My childhood crush, Charlie Baker, graces all of our presents as Clark Kent, aka Superman. Clark is your typical 15-year-old freshman, played by a 25-year-old man.
I have a comment about that.
The WB pooled all their money in the first 5 minutes of this episode and said, fuck it, let's use all the explosives. Clark... Whew.
Somebody save me.
Yeah. Clark struggles to understand who he truly is, but also doesn't shy away from stalking the love interest who lives next door. That's a summary. Oh.
Somebody save me.
Somebody save me.
I was really upset that it wasn't in the pilot.
I know.
I went and watched the intro
just
of the
so
second episode just so I could see it. Okay.
So have you seen this pilot?
I've never seen this pilot before.
Because I had seen the pilot.
So we watched the WB for Gilmore Girls. So I know I've seen little bits of Smallville, but not that I, like, have concrete memories of any of it, just that Tom Welling's in it, really. That's all I remembered. And there's something about early 2000s teen shows that just work.
Yeah.
It's super cheesy. The graphics are horrible, but goddamn, when Tom Welling smiles and his little dimples look at you and his chiseled 14-year-old body, you can't help but get a little happy and swoon a little bit.
I didn't think he was a freshman.
I literally wrote a note. He is supposed to be 14? 14 years old. He's a freshman.
He was 25 when the show started, the actor.
Yeah, so he
was 11
I mean,
11
to be
years
fair,
older.
that is very common
Yeah,
that
it
they
is.
cast up. But I was like, LOL, he maybe could pass as a senior
Yeah.
or something, you know, not a freshman.
It's interesting because I very much felt the same way, where I was like, in terms of where all the pilots were, I don't think it was like that great compared to the group, but there's something so nostalgic about 2000s. Maybe because we just grew up watching 2000 shows.
But
I did notice, like, right at the beginning, there was a, like, reference to Arrow.
oh,
Like, Lionel Luther, they're in the helicopter at the
Yeah.
beginning. He's reading a newspaper and it says Queen Industry CEO
Oh,
presumed
right.
dead.
Yes.
And I think that's after the
Yes.
boat
yes,
crashes
the
in Arrow.
Yes.
Also, Grace Bowman's dad.
Yes.
is Jonathan.
Yes, I had to look it up because I was
From
like, he
Secret
looks
Life,
so
yeah.
familiar, and I couldn't place it.
Yeah, the beginning was insane. These two people just literally watch themselves get blown up. They just let it happen.
Yeah. This town literally explodes. People are dying. Clark in his little Superman, I don't know, what do you call it, a spaceship, crashes
His pod.
His pod flips their truck over, and we had the cheesiest, he found us. And I went, God damn it. I'm like, and then the swelling, like, John Williams-esque score playing. But the music choices, excellent. There's the part where there's this angsty teenage soundtrack while Lex Luthor's driving down the road and smashes Superman with his car.
Jeez.
We'll come back to that later. I liked it. You know, there were some things that I was like, what? And some things that are dated.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought as, like, an intro to this, like, teenage version of Superman, I kind of thought it worked. There was no, like, Superman uses his heat vision.
Yeah.
Fly Turbo Man, use your jetpack. But sometimes it's the smallville. It's the small things you need, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because this show was so much earlier than any other show we did.
11 years
Right.
before.
So it's very hard. It was very hard for me to compare it.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of, like, the action stuff wasn't necessarily as impressive as some of the newer stuff they can do, but that's also a product of the times.
But also, like, they used practical effect. Could tell this was a physical, not CGI.
Right.
It was, like, physically happening. Because
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes with these superhero shows, some of them, not all of them, have to use a lot of CGI.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for practical effects hold up.
There's something just so, like, wholesome about it.
Yeah.
Because it feels very much like he's, like, this kind of nerdy guy. Like, I mean, part of the reason he stumbles around the girl he has a crush on is because she has a kryptonite necklace.
Yes.
So he literally
No.
is getting, like, poisoned.
Yeah.
You can't help but root for him, even though
Yeah.
he kind of stalks her a little bit too, which
Yeah,
don't love that. But he's also like a
the
14-year-old
most fucking
boy.
common trope, Hannah,
Yeah.
of the early
Yeah.
2000s.
They had to do it.
We had that in
10 Things I Hate About You.
No. Well, that one too. But
Just
also,
list all of them.
Lincoln Heights.
Lincoln Heights, yes.
Yes, that was a very common trope.
Yeah.
The, like, shy, mysterious boy quietly stalks the girl,
Yeah,
and it's romantic.
from a distance.
Yep.
I also really like Lex. I think
I do, too.
Michael Rosenberg, I think he's a really compelling.
Yeah,
Already?
I was pretty compelled by him,
Yeah.
just in the pilot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I thought I liked Clark's interaction with his two friends too.
Yeah.
In this pilot, when Clark gets sent to Earth, he's like probably 2 or 3,
Yeah.
and in a lot of the other adaptations, he's usually like an infant, like a baby.
Yeah, like, he doesn't remember.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is kind of weird, but it's also like a creative liberty that
Yeah.
they can take. But yeah, I did enjoy it.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite character?
I went with Clark.
I did too.
I think that Clark and Lex, I kind of had both of them, but I think Clark just because he's like, it's Tom Welling.
It's Tom
He was my
Welling.
first
I
childhood
know.
crush.
It's Tom Welling.
He's so damn charming.
He's so charismatic.
Even like as his age now, he still seems like really just like a genuine person.
I
And maybe
don't
he's a
know.
horrible person. I don't
Maybe.
really know.
I've
but...
never heard anything bad about him, but who knows?
But yeah, I have a soft spot for Tom Welling. So.
I do too.
Yeah. A favorite line, I did have one. Clark's like, I'm like the Fort Knox of secrets. I was like, oh god, oh Clark. Oh Clark. Yeah. My favorite scene was the beginning with all the explosions, just because of how ridiculous it was.
My favorite scene was the ridiculousness of the first scene as well. I don't, what am I watching? What is happening? And especially because you literally have a man tied to a scarecrow man who's like, help me, and then all the corn gets blown away and Lex Luthor's hair gets blown off.
No. I said, so that's how Lex went bald.
Like, it was so stupid.
I also thought the Scarecrow Man, like, died, but apparently he wasn't dead. Well, he got powers, but...
He's in a coma, Hannah. A very common trope. Lots of comas.
What was that show on ABC Family where he wakes up after 16 years?
Oh, what was that called?
It's not important.
Not important.
So for this specific, we're going to do favorite superhero moment.
Yes.
We figure we can't pass up an opportunity to... I mean, whatever you want. It can be any kind of superhero thing you want it to be. You go first.
Okay, so I'm watching this show. I'm, like, in bed. Tom Welling is angsting on a bridge. Lex Luthor's driving along. Also angsting in his car. Speeding really fast. And a random, like, metal pipe falls into the road. And Lex is like, ooh! And swerves his car. Hits Tom Welling through the bridge. They go flying into a river, and I was like, what am I watching? And then, Clark saves him. Yeah. So that's my superhero moment. Bridge.
Mine was gonna be that, or when he sticks his hand in a wood chipper and was like, see, I'm indestructible.
Oh, that made me so uncomfortable.
And then watch again, I would say yes.
I say so, too. I was intrigued enough by the pilot that I would probably watch it again. Only for the charm.
If only for Tom Welling.
Yeah. Only for that smile.
Dimples for days.
That damn smile, Hannah.
Damn smile.
Yeah.
Okay, so next would be Arrow.
Which
should be your show.
Yes.
Also, the only show we watched together.
Yeah. Okay, so this actually is good because Arrow actually was a spin-off of Smallville. So Arrow was started in 2012. October 10th, 2012 was when the pilot aired. I wrote in parentheses, I watched it in 2013.
Oh.
Sometime during 2013. The show has an 8.5 on IMDb, an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, 85% for season 1, and 100% for the pilot. The show is based on the DC character Green Arrow, aka Oliver Queen, and it launched the Arrowverse, Oliver Queen being played by Stephen Amell. There are 8 seasons, like most of the superhero shows filmed in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Yep.
It aired from 2012 to 2020, so it ended in 2020. As you said, they kind of hinted at this, like, I can't remember Oliver's dad's name, Mr. Queen. Dad Queen. Robert Queen going missing.
Dad Queen.
And so the character of Green Arrow was featured in Smallville from 2006 to 2011, because Smallville literally aired until 2011.
Do you know who plays him?
Yes. It is Justin Hartley.
From This Is Us.
From This Is Us. Yeah. Essentially, they wanted to start fresh with a new actor and a new portrayal of the character, because Justin Hartley did not want to do a spinoff. I think they had talked about it with him, and he was like, no, I don't want to do it. So they were like, okay, let's just do a new iteration, new character, like, this is not the same person. And that version, by Justin Hartley, would have been run by the showrunner who would then go on to run Daredevil. I think it would have gone well. So David Nutter, who you discussed, directed the pilot of Arrow as well. He did the pilot of Smallville, came to do the pilot of Arrow. So the showrunners initially didn't want superpowers in the show because they wanted this, like, more realistic portrayal of this character. The first 5 seasons include flashbacks to this mysterious island where Oliver goes missing on. The costume designer of the show, or of his original costume, is done by Colleen Atwood. The pilot had 4.14 million views, which was the most watched premiere since The Vampire Diaries. The second episode held the ratings, and it was the only network drama to do so in 2012 to 2013. Like, of all shows that premiered in that season, it was the only show that held ratings for the first 2 episodes. So season 1 of the show had an average of 3.68 million views. Season 8 had an average of 1.52 million. So they still had a pretty significant amount of views, but it was cut in half from season 1 to season 8.
I say 1.5 is actually decent for a CW show.
It's pretty decent.
Especially in its last season.
Exactly. The character of Diggle, I can't remember his first name.
John
Diggle is a new character for the show. He was not in the comics. I think he's been written into comics
now
since his introduction, but he starts off as this, like, bodyguard. You know, got to keep Oliver Queen in check.
Yeah.
The pilot has generally favorable reviews, giving Stephen Amell a lot of praise for his portrayal of his character. The show, however, has mixed reviews.
I would like to add I have mixed feelings.
And would go on to lead to the Flash spinoff in season 2. Okay, now I have my summary. Queen Consolidated has failed Star City. When Playboy douche Oliver Queen ends up shipwrecked on the island from Lost, he must survive unknown horrors to become something new. Katniss Everdeen. 3 years later, he comes home with a mission to right the wrongs of his family legacy by all means necessary, including the Salmon Ladder.
Salmon Ladder.
My God.
We were waiting for it.
So we watched this pilot together, and I kept being like, is the Salmon Ladder in this episode or the second episode? And the fact that I haven't seen this pilot in almost 10 years, but I somehow knew there was going to be a Salmon Ladder, it's got to be significant, you know?
Yes.
That's all I'm saying.
I mean, we've obviously both seen this pilot. I remembered this pilot, like, years after I watched it.
I have such a vivid memory. Yeah. The way they do the intermixing of these flashbacks to the current day, I think work really well in this pilot. I think they set enough mystery and intrigue for you to want to know more.
Yep.
I think that the fact that Oliver is like two different people.
Yeah.
He has this persona of, he was this like party playboy, I miss tequila, lovin' boy, but he's also this like vigilante who murders people in his free time, you know?
Yeah.
Running around with a hood, having a great time. He's got this sleazy but charming best friend, Tommy, who, R.I.P. Tommy.
He's so damn charming in this pilot, though.
He's gross, but he's charming.
He is charming.
And I'm like,
I hate that I like him.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. I would agree.
There's a lot of good humor in the pilot.
There is.
I think they do a really good job introducing characters. Mm-hmm. I liked multiple characters.
Yeah.
It's hard now because I've obviously watched it, so I'm more invested in the characters. Mm-hmm. I agree with you, though. The flashbacks tie in really well, I think. I've always loved with Arrow how I think good the action sequences look.
He did a ton of training.
Yeah. A lot of the actors and actresses actually, did a lot. They do a lot of their, stunts.
Like, he does a lot of his own. Like, he did the salmon ladder.
Yeah.
Like, that was him going up that salmon ladder. Like, the fact that there can be a lot of practical effects and there doesn't need to be necessarily a lot of, like, special effects because he's not having superpowers or speed or flying. Like,
because he doesn't have any unnatural powers. Like, his powers are that he's like trained in combat and all these different things.
Right.
You know, that's
so
his story.
I think that lends well to the format and probably the lack of budget.
Yeah, it helps because some of the shows where they can't be practical things. They have to be CGI at some point. Yeah. I do think Stephen Amell, like, his acting gets a lot better throughout the run of Arrow. I think he's good in the pilot, but I do think at points he's a little like, and I don't really know what much he did before Arrow.
He was in an episode of Degrassi.
Oh, he is Canadian.
Rent-A-Goalie, Heartland.
Oh, okay.
Blue Mountain State, a bit in the Vampire Diaries. So I think he mainly did like bit stuff. New Girl.
He
was. New Girl, Private Practice.
Okay.
So just like
first major role.
Yeah, major role, starring role.
Right.
Seems like.
I like Oliver's interaction with his family.
I do too.
With Thea, and I think...
And his mom.
There's, like, that big reveal at the end that, like, Moira hired people to see, like, what Oliver knew and if his father was still alive and all this. So, you get, like, a lot of conflict and, like... It's very intriguing. It makes you want to watch. And obviously the fact that its retention rate was, like... Pretty Little Liars was like that, remember? Yeah. Like, it was pretty much like...
Pretty Little Liars had a higher... For a second episode was even higher than the pilot.
Like, to me, that's a sign of a good pilot.
Yeah.
Because people wanted to come back and watch. So, yeah, I think it's a really solid pilot.
I do, too.
Also, I love the music.
I know the dun-dun-dun-dun.
The intro's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, who's your favorite character?
I liked Oliver. He's mysterious enough where you see his flaws. Mm-hmm. Like, clearly he cheated on his girlfriend with her sister. Her sister died, quotes on died, because she'll come back and, when we get to the show that she's in, but she's dead. And, her family has to deal with that. Her sister has to deal with that. And I think that leads to some interesting conflict. Also, just the fact that, like, their dad did not survive. So you've got this family having to cope with the fact that they thought 2 members of their family were dead and it ended up being just one. And one of them came back and readjusting to that. And I really liked it. I think there's a lot of really good stuff here. And I remember really liking season 1. Like, I cried. Rip Tommy.
Tommy.
Died.
Don't worry, spoiler, he doesn't actually die.
Yeah.
Well, he did, but he came back.
What a surprise.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Favorite character for me is Oliver as well. Like, you get to see, like, he clearly doesn't want to be the same guy he used to be, but he kind of has to put on a front so that people don't get suspicious of him.
Yeah.
You see him kind of, like, be an asshole to Laurel, but he's, like, doing it to protect her, and, like, he takes drugs off of Thea at a party, and, like, obviously he has good sides to him, but he's also, like, been through a lot, so it's interesting to see his, like, struggles in it. Favorite line? I miss tequila.
He, like, gets on stage and takes a shot, and he's like, I miss tequila.
I was like, same.
I also put the salmon ladder just as, like,
yes.
Love a good salmon ladder.
Yeah, favorite scene. I did really like when Tommy was catching Oliver up on the past couple years. He's like, lost. They were dead the whole time, and like all this stuff.
Twilight, yeah.
Favorite superhero moment? I just said anytime Oliver has a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
I love the scene when he was like shooting all the tennis balls. Just anytime he fights, really.
Yeah, I like that when he sets up his little workshop, again, salmon ladder, just like getting everything ready. I also really liked the fight when he purposely makes a party in a warehouse so he can be fighting in the building next door and then repels away into the night.
It is.
It's a fun pilot.
I would watch it again.
Yeah.
Obviously I did.
Based on that pilot, yes, even though I know I watched it a full 2 seasons beyond that.
Right.
It got me hooked for 2 seasons, which, it's pretty good.
Next would be Flash.
Flash, yep. Yes, the first spin-off from Arrow, The Flash. So The Flash started in 2014, which was 2 years after Arrow started. It is currently still running. There are 8 seasons. I believe they're like on the
It's like the
mid-season break. The pilot aired on October 7th, 2014. So the character of Barry Allen, as portrayed by Grant Gustin, actually appeared first in Arrow. There was a 2-episode, what was supposed to be a backdoor pilot.
Oh.
So essentially, they first planned it as a 3-episode arc. The 3rd episode was going to serve as the backdoor pilot. Essentially, if you don't know what a backdoor pilot is, think of like The Office, the Schrutes. Where Dwight's mother dies and all of his family comes together, and it's like very Dwight focused. Like, that was a backdoor pilot to lead to a new show. But the studios and audiences liked this character and this portrayal so much that they decided, okay, let's do the 2 episodes that were planned to just exist in Arrow, and then we'll just do a standalone full budget pilot because they wanted to have a bigger budget. The pilot had 4.83 million views. With the 7-day ratings, it was watched 6.8 million times.
Okay.
This was the most watched telecast on the CW since... What show do you think? It was 2007.
Gossip Girl?
Mm-mm. You want to be on top?
Oh, America's Next Top Model.
Beat out Cycle 8 finale of America's Next Top Model in 2007. It had 6.69 million views. So Colleen Atwood also did the original costume for The Flash. So Season 1 average views were 4.62 million. Season 7, because they don't have Season 8 ratings yet, Season 7 had an average of 1.58 million. So still, like, relatively high, but has dropped quite a bit from Season 1 to Season 7. The first 3 seasons are pretty comparable in views, and then it started to dip after that. So, in 2016, The Flash was the 5th most popular show in the world. Like most searched, like in terms of hashtags, Google
Like social
searches,
media,
social media
stuff like
searches. So I was curious, what do you think the other 4 shows are?
So shows that were currently on in 2016.
Shows that were currently on and running in 2016 that had the highest, like, engagement online.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones was number 1.
Maybe Breaking Bad. Was Breaking Bad on during that or no?
It was already done.
Grey's Anatomy?
No.
I didn't watch TV in 2016.
We have discussed the pilot of one of these
Pretty
shows.
Little Liars?
Pretty Little Liars.
Okay.
Number 3, Pretty Little Liars.
I need some hints.
One show was huge. It's still running somehow, but like a huge show in like 2012, 2013. They're moving at a slow pace. Really slow pace, except they can run in this version.
I don't fucking know what you're talking about. Slow pace.
It's a Cranberries song.
Zombie? Oh, Walking Dead.
Walking Dead.
Oh. Yeah, that show is still on.
Walking Dead is somehow. Walking Dead was number 2. Number 4, I don't think you'll get it, Westworld.
Okay.
Westworld was huge. Season 1, when it came out, it was like, I remember the engagement was huge. Anyway, so season 1 had a 92% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and a 73 out of 100 on Metacritic. The show has been nominated for 1 Emmy Award. It was rated 23 out of 40 for the best sci-fi television shows in an article done by Rolling Stones in 2016. The pilot has an 8.5 out of 10 in IMDb. There's also novels, there's digital comics, video games. There's a lot of spin-offs from this series as well. Okay, now I have my my summary. He's running around at the speed of sound after waking from a 9-month coma after being struck by lightning. Barry Allen is haunted by his past, his father being blamed for his mother's death. So, he becomes a CSI forensic investigator to get close to the truth. There will be no seasons of love, as Barry must become the hero he was maybe meant to be.
Love that little Rent shout out.
Of course. We love Rent. Oh, just realized I missed something. So, just a fun fact. There was a Flash TV show in the 1990s. You know, I'm sure the graphics were great.
Right.
But they brought in the guy who played the Flash to be Barry's father.
Yes.
Yes.
I did know that.
Just thought that was a fun fact.
You know what I do think is interesting about this, because not every pilot did this. We get to see Barry before his powers.
Yep.
And then Barry essentially getting his powers and, learning how to deal with them. Because some of these pilots, either we missed the part where they've gotten the powers.
Right. It's beyond that.
Or they've had them and they just haven't used them in a while, stuff like that. So we get to see, the full arc, which I actually thought was kind of interesting. Barry, Grant Gustin, he's, again, a really, nerdy but, charming personality. Yeah. He's just...
Charismatic. He can carry that role.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then we get introduced to, Iris, who's obviously his love interest.
Who's also his
best friend. Technically sister, which was always kind of weird to me.
Yeah. They like to do that a lot.
They lived together because Barry's parents, obviously his mom was dead, his dad was in jail, so he lived with Iris and her dad.
Detective Joe.
Joe West.
We love a Detective Joe.
We do.
He's a great... supportive dad.
This is one of the shows I was talking about where the CGI is a bit jarring.
It's a little jarring.
Yeah, I think it does get better as the show goes on.
I think it does,
again,
too.
pilots don't necessarily have the budget they would have for the show because they have to, pitch that. You know what I mean? So...
Yeah. I think, a lot of the character dynamics work really well.
Yeah.
I have to say, though, this is just petty, and I have to talk about it. Iris brings her fucking laptop to a city... this particle accelerator, cyclotron, I don't remember exactly what it's called, gets her laptop stolen, and she's like, my dissertation's on there. You don't have that shit backed up on 4 or 5 different places?
You should.
Your, 100+ page dissertation? You don't have it on Google Drive? You don't have it a hard drive, a flash drive, a backup computer? You're telling me that you just have it on one physical thing? You spill one coffee and it's all gone.
It's over.
I could not get over the fact that the amount of times this happens where it's somebody has important files only in one location.
It doesn't have backed up, yeah.
I'm like, you're smarter than this.
You're better than this. I forgot that Oliver was in the pilot.
I forgot so too.
Yeah.
That he makes a little cameo.
Which they do that with shows. I think it's kind of smart because it helps to, like, know in the future that the shows will be, like, interacting with each other.
I think so, too.
I think it's good, though. It's got dark themes, but it's also... Flash has always been known as, like, this, like, more happy, upbeat show compared to, like,
Quirky,
Arrow.
Yeah, it's, like, quick quips, and, yeah.
And I like Cisco and Caitlin, who work in the lab.
I do, too, yeah.
Dr. Wells is, like, a pretty intriguing character. You learn, like, some of his backstory.
For some reason, I always think he's Tom Hanks' son.
Oh.
His name is Tom Cavanaugh.
Do you think he's Colin Hanks?
Colin Hanks.
They look similar.
For some reason, every time I see him, I have to be like, let me double check to make sure it's not Tom Hanks' son.
Maybe my one minor thing would be it felt a little bit disjointed at times.
The shift from him being struck by lightning to him waking up was a bit jarring.
Right.
And cut a little strangely.
Yeah.
I also don't think the tornado thing was a very fun end to a pilot.
Yeah.
It was fine. I just, like, I preferred the car chase way more.
I almost wish that would have been, like, the ending.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's cool and all, but, like, for a pilot, he's just running in a circle around a tornado.
Yeah. It was cool. Underwhelming a little bit.
It was a little underwhelming.
Yeah.
I think that's the right word for it. I can't do it.
I can't do it. I think it was solid, though.
I think it was a really solid pilot.
Yeah.
I did really like the pilot.
My favorite character is Barry.
I said Barry, and also a special shout out to Detective Joe, a.k.a. Jesse.
Love him.
Yes.
From Rent.
Seasons of love.
I just want to say something. I was editing our last episode, and we both hit a note at the same time, and it actually sounded pretty good.
What note did we hit? When?
We were singing something. It sounded good, though.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, that has nothing to do with this. Yeah, I just think Barry's, like, you kind of got to root for him. He's got a good heart.
Yeah.
He's trying to help people. Favorite line? Oh, there was actually a funny line. It's at the beginning when Barry, like, shows up late to the CSI scene and, like, all this. He's all flustered. And his boss is like, last time you told me you had car trouble. You don't even own a car. And he's like, yeah. Like yeah, I like that.
So my favorite scene, I really liked the, like, serious nature of the talk between him and Detective Joe over his dad. Yeah. Where he's like, you made this up, you were a scared child, and you needed, your brain gave you this image as a way to cope and deal with it. Like, your dad killed your mom, you have to accept this and you have to move on. And, you know, he's not right, but it's just like, he's just trying to make him see reality.
Right.
He's like, I need you to move on from this. I need you to accept that this is what happened.
Yeah.
But then he's also able to recognize I'm wrong because I just saw a man, you know, that died is now alive again, and I saw you run around a tornado at supersonic speeds. But I really liked that dynamic, and I thought it was, like, I was really intrigued by that conversation, like, as heavy as it was.
Yeah, Flash does emotional scenes well. I think they have a lot of actors and actresses who can, like, do those scenes well. I think my favorite superhero moment was the car chase scene.
I agree.
I did like the tornado, just the music playing in the background was cool.
The score was good.
But the scene stuff was not great.
I liked that he, like, got in the car and crashed the car and then somehow was fine even though he wasn't wearing a seatbelt.
Yeah, but then, like, someone died.
Yeah.
From the car crash. Yeah. A different person.
So I was like, it's not great. But
it also, like, I think he learned. But yeah, I obviously said I would watch again because I did watch multiple seasons.
I am aware of certain plot points from shows.
Well, I told you to.
You've told me. Also, shout out to Blind Wave. We love Blind Wave. They do a lot of reactions to, like, superhero shows. I couldn't be bothered to watch a second episode of a pilot, mainly because I didn't have time, so I watched them react to it. So sometimes I have tidbits of information just from seeing, like, I watched, like, their reactions to the crossovers. So I'm just like, what happens? Right. What interesting things are there? So I know that The Flash is generally considered good for its first, like, 3 or 4 seasons, and then it kind of...
It drops.
That's
when I stopped watching, actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm aware of, at least.
All right, so next would be Supergirl. All right, so Supergirl aired in 2015 and ran till 2021. It was 6 seasons and 126 episodes. Has a 6.3 out of 10 on IMDb and an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes. The pilot aired on October 26, 2015. It was directed by Glenn Winter, and it had 12.96 million viewers. Side note, the first season aired on CBS.
Right.
Yes.
I forgot that it was on CBS.
So I do have some information about that, but that would, to me, explain why the number was so high. So for the second season and on, it moved to the CW, and at that point, the ratings did drop down, but also it's not a big network,
Right.
So Supergirl focuses on Kara Zor-El, who is the cousin of...
You just said cousin.
Who is the cousin of...
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you out like that.
Clark Kent, Superman. Yes. It is part of the Arrowverse. It is considered the third show of the Arrowverse. So in January 2015, it was announced that Melissa Benoist would star as Supergirl. She was actually the first actress they looked at for the role. Oh. And they decided to stick with her. They did consider other people after that.
Okay.
So there was kind of a lot of speculation on what type of role Superman would play in this show. The producers really wanted the show, though, to, focus on Supergirl and see the show from her lens. They didn't want Superman to be, take over the show, because he wasn't the focus.
Yeah, he's not the star.
So the move to the CW meant that filming switched from Los Angeles to Vancouver. And that actually created issues for Calissa Flockhart, who plays Cat Grant.
Oh, right.
In her contract originally, she had stated she could only work near Los Angeles to be near her family, which, fair. She had, kids and stuff. So this actually led to her becoming a recurring character in season 2, and then ultimately, occasionally would show up on the show.
Yeah.
She was no longer, a main character. Mm-hmm. There was a little bit of a controversy, too, when the costume was revealed. Some people really liked the modern take. Other people thought it looked washed out and cheap, was what was used.
Okay.
They decided to get rid of, the midriff, design from, the early Supergirl movie and comics, because they wanted more of, they didn't want it to be, a sex appeal thing. They wanted to go away from that. So in season 1, each episode actually cost around $3 million to broadcast, which is one of the highest license fees for a first-year show. And that was actually one of the main reasons why they switched to the CW. CBS was hesitant to renew the show, and CW, since all the other shows were already on the CW, it kind of made sense.
Let me consolidate this from you.
They also said, too, it's easier to do crossovers when they're on the same network.
Yeah, because the filming makes it easier,
So it has generally good critic reviews. There's a lot of praise for Melissa Benoist's portrayal of Supergirl. It's been nominated and won numerous awards. And a little interesting note, Helen Slater and Dean Cain, who play Kara's adoptive parents, the Danvers, Helen Slater was actually Supergirl in a 1984 film. And Dean Cain played Superman in the TV series Lois and Clark. So they kind of use both of them.
Thing.
Right.
Yeah, similar to
which I thought was interesting. And now I will read my summary.
All right.
Kara Zor-El, cousin of Superman, is 13 years old. Is 13 years old when her planet Krypton is dying. She is sent by her parents to look after Superman, who is a baby. Now, this is when things get a little bit complicated. Kara's pod gets knocked off course, trapping her in a voidless... Wait, I can't speak.
Voidless.
Trapping her in a voidless time stopper for 24 years. When she arrives to Earth, she is still 13, but Superman is now 24. Side note, all this happens in the first 5 minutes of the pilot. Superman finds her, abandons her with strangers, and goes back to his hero shit. We jump forward to Kara's life as an adult, where Ally McBeal plays her boss. Her sister works for a secret organization, and multiple men are pining after her. Together with the help of her... Sorry, I had to write this on a ton of pages. Together with the help of her friend, she will try to become her own hero. But please, before we do this, can we, for the love of God, get this girl a therapist?
Yeah.
Talk about traumatizing.
Yeah, I loved the comment, Ally McBeal, Calissa Flockhart, Cat Grant. I couldn't remember what her name was.
He went through 3 different names.
I just was combining them all together. Cat Grant, she's like, I'm canceling lunch with my mom, so please cancel therapy.
I won't need that if I'm not having lunch with my mom.
If I'm not eating lunch with my mom. And I was like, that's kind of funny.
So have you seen this pilot?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I had seen bits and pieces of Supergirl, and I know you've talked about it a lot because you love Supergirl.
Love-hate.
Love-hate relationship.
Alyssa's heard a lot about it.
Yeah.
Most of me complaining.
Here's what I have to say. This was made in 2016?
Yes.
I definitely can feel the, like, girl boss feminism take. It's not overbearing.
Yep.
It's not anywhere where I'm like, Avengers Endgame, let's have all the women walk together except for Black Widow.
Right.
At the very end, and it's not that level of, I hate it, but you can definitely, like, see what angle they're going for. She's just as strong as Superman. Girl power. Females bow to men, that being a line in the show. And I don't have a problem with that. I wonder if because it's a pilot, they really had to, like, push that angle just for the sake of it being a pilot, and I'm assuming it tones down. So I'm okay with it, but it's definitely just something that I noticed, that I was like, I see what they're going for, and it's a little forced, but it's not bad.
Yeah, they do tone it down pretty quickly. I think you're right that they wanted to put it in the pilot. That's kind of a lot of people's, like, I guess, critique of the pilot is that, like, a lot of people said the same thing. Like, they didn't feel like it was over the top, but they also felt like they were trying to, like, prove a point.
Yeah.
But they definitely tone it down a lot, like, going forward.
Yeah. The way that I thought it worked really well is you get, the name is Supergirl, and Kara comes in and she's like, Supergirl, like, why can't she be Superwoman? Like, why is her name Supergirl? And Cat Grant's like, well, I'm a girl, and I'm great and awesome, so, like, why is that an insult?
I'm hot shit.
Hot shit, yeah. Ally McBeal, you know? I dated Robert Downey Jr.
I'm pretty sure she's married to Harrison Ford.
She is married to Harrison Ford.
Or was.
I'm pretty sure she's still married to Harrison Ford.
So she can do what she wants.
Yeah. She's got Han Solo and Indiana Jones in her pocket.
She's got both.
Yeah. But anyway, so it's like... that scene worked for me. I really liked that. I liked that they were like, hey, we recognize Supergirl as, like, it's weird to call a adult woman a girl, but in this instance, like, we're owning that. So I like that scene worked for me. Also, I now understand the Phantom Zone.
Yes.
Because the season 4 of Young Justice is called Phantoms.
Yes.
And one of the characters is trapped in the Phantom Zone. Probably, most likely. We'll find out after the mid-season break. And I was like, Phantom Zone, huh?
I think they did a good explanation of the Phantom Zone.
I think so, too. It made sense. The flying CGI is a little shaky. It's not terrible, though, and I think it's that CBS money really pulling through. I liked the dynamic between her and her sister.
Yeah.
I thought that really worked well, and I know that's, like, something you've mentioned.
That's, like, a big part of the show, and that's, like, people got mad later on because they just completely, like, abandoned the relationship, but then at the end, they brought them back together. Yeah. I think one of the things I've always liked about Supergirl, even when the show sucked, was, like, the character dynamics. And, like, I thought, actually, they developed Kara and Alex's relationship a lot in a pilot. And it was one of the most, like, developed relationships I saw out of any pilot. Where they put the most time into... You could almost, like, understand their relationship.
And their dynamic,
like, how it was, like, for Alex growing up with, like, someone who's a superhero and all this stuff. Like, so I really like that. I think it's, like, fun. I think Kara's, like, weirdly relatable.
She's, like, the, like, kind of quirky...
She's almost like Felicity from Arrow.
Yeah, she's kind of like Felicity.
Where she's a little bit awkward, but she's also, like, she goes on a bad blind date. Like, we've all been there. Like,
well, Felicity pre-season, like, 3.
Yeah.
It's just...
Before she was paralyzed and then not paralyzed.
Yeah, that was a little fan service.
But yeah, I like Kat. I think Kat's good at, like, she's stern, but she also, like, wants Kara to, like, at one point she's like, I don't want you to get, like, walked over, basically.
Yeah. It's similar to the boss from...
Bold Type,
Jacqueline.
Yes. A.k.a. Jan.
Livingston Gould.
Jan Livingston Gould.
Where's Gould?
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked it. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts.
Okay. Who's your favorite character?
I liked Kara.
Yeah.
I think she's a good lead. I think she can carry the pilot. It's interesting because it's like it's focused on her, but really this pilot is like her interactions with other people.
Yeah.
Like her and Jimmy Olsen, her and her boss, her and her friend, and her sister. And it's really more about these dynamics, establishing these dynamics and exploring like character relationships as opposed to like her independently,
because there's not much that's just on her. Like pretty much every time she's doing something, it's with another character, or it's like two to boost or to bring down a relationship, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. Kara, also love Cat Grant. I just think she's...
Cat Grant's
love
pretty
Calista
great.
Flockhart, basically. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, favorite scenes, like, all the scenes between, like, Alex and Kara...
I liked their one talk before she goes out to fight whatever that dude was.
Vartox.
Vartox. Sure. Anyway, I liked that specific talk the most, I think, between them.
Yeah, I also like the scene, like, after she saves the plane, and she's, like, so excited, and Alex is, like, kind of, like...
Temper your excitement.
Yeah, she's also just, like, worried about her, like, revealing herself.
Yeah.
A favorite superhero moment, I had to go with the plane scene.
I have two.
Okay.
The plane landing, and there's also a part where she literally, like, stops a car and it explodes around her. And that was just, like, cool.
The truck?
Yes, the truck.
Yeah.
Yeah, where she's just, like, in the road and just... I thought that was cool.
I remember when they released a trailer for the pilot, I watched, like, Blind Wave reacting to it, and that was, like, the part that, like, got all of them, where they're like, oh, like, that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would watch it again.
Yeah, I think solely based on the pilot, I would watch it. Yeah. I think the dynamic is interesting enough from that first episode.
Yes. Okay, so next we have Legends of Tomorrow.
Right.
Okay, so Legends of Tomorrow came out the next year, in 2016, and it is currently still running. It is at 7 seasons right now. It's got a 6.8 out of 10 on IMDb and an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was developed by Greg Berlanti, who does a lot of the other Arrowverse shows. So this is a spin-off show that features characters primarily from Arrow and The Flash. It is currently at 109 episodes, or it was as of the 7th season. So, interesting, the pilot was technically 2 parts.
It was 2 full-length episodes.
They released it back-to-back weeks, so it came out on January 21st and 28th, so it wasn't even on the same day.
It wasn't even the same day?
No. Nope.
That's weird.
So, a week apart in 2016. The first part got 3.21 million viewers. The second part got 2.89 million viewers. Yeah,
probably should have aired them back to back.
I would have aired them back to back, but I don't know if you can't get the time slots, or just have it one pilot. In 2015, they started discussing the concept of this show. So they actually, when they announced the casting for the show, they said there was going to be 3 major DC comic characters who had never appeared in a TV series.
Okay.
One of those being Rip Hunter.
Okay.
Who plays the captain.
Is the other the Hawks?
I actually didn't write it down. I didn't find it.
Okay.
Okay, so early on the show was supposed to be more of like an anthology series. Each season was supposed to be its own separate thing, but then kind of be not as disconnected, such as like True Detective or American Horror Story, where it's like each season's its own kind of story.
Yeah.
They decided to drop that idea, though. So they kind of talked about some specifics on the pilot. Glenn Winter directed the pilot. He talked about the difficulties of the pilot because the show doesn't have a number 1 actor on their call sheet. There's technically like 7 to 8 people who are considered the leads of the show as of the first season.
Yeah, it's primarily based on what I saw, ensemble cast.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no technically lead. And so he was worried about like meshing personalities together and also having to shoot scenes with like 8 or 9 people a scene. Like a lot of their scenes, they're all together.
Yeah.
But a lot of critics praise this show for its potential. It's interesting because on Rotten Tomatoes, the score goes up each season.
Yeah.
So in season 1, it started at 65, and in the 5th season, it's at 99%.
I was going to say, what I know about this show is, I think it's like season 3 is where it shifts.
Yeah.
And I know it's considered to be a lot better once they shift.
So it's been nominated for and won numerous awards. And now I have a summary.
Okay.
He's a savage. Vandal Savage, to be more specific. When he threatens to destroy the future, Rip Hunter, a former timekeeper, must assemble side characters from various Arrowverse shows to save the future and time itself. There's a poor man's Ant-Man, a former assassin, and the Schofield brothers, amongst other characters. Let's not forget Professor Callahan, but don't worry, he's not a creepy predator in this show.
He roofies a boy!
Okay, but like...
Are you kidding me?
I forgot.
He roofies a 20-year-old boy!
Actually, so yeah, I forgot about that. He is creepy.
I'm sorry, I got a little loud. A little heated.
It's fine, I forgot about the roofie part. He did roofie.
Before I get into what I want to discuss, I have to say... So, Hawkman and Hawkwoman, or Hawk Lady...
Hawkman and Hawkgirl.
Hawkgirl.
Hawk...
The Hawks. The Hawks. Inclusive. Hawkman dies. Spoiler. Ooh. But, the Hawks. Okay. He dies in the pilot, like, second episode.
He does.
So it's not really a spoiler. The Hawks inclusive have never been interesting to me. They've appeared briefly in Young Justice. They've appeared briefly in other shows and just media, and I have never liked them, and I was like, this is finally the time I get the backstory, I get to understand more, and still did nothing for me. I did not give a shit about those characters.
I think the problem with their story is it's all about just the two of them being in love with each other.
Yeah.
And I don't relate to love.
It's just like, okay,
it's just not interesting.
So, I watched the first episode of the pilot, and then I didn't have time to watch a full second episode, because I didn't budget for that in my time, my time budgeting.
Right.
So I watched Blind Wave react to the pilot, so I could still get the gist of it, but then I don't have to, like, physically watch all of it. And something they were saying is that you have these people who can fucking fly with mallets against Vandal Savage, and they're not flying to attack him.
Right.
They're on the ground where he can easily kill them, which he does to Hawkman. So I just want to say that, like, the part of the pilot that doesn't work for me is the fact that it's very focused on these two characters that, like, I don't know if they're introduced before the pilot. Like, do they appear on Arrow? Do they appear on Flash?
I don't believe so. I know that,
because I know the Schofields appear
they were
in
in Flash. They were villains.
Sarah
Sarah's
Lance
from Arrow.
is from Arrow. The Atom.
He's from Arrow.
Okay. And then Fire...
So the boy, Professor Stein is a character from Flash, but he was Firestorm with this character Ronnie, who was Caitlin's, like, fiance. He dies during the particle accelerator. Oh, and it's actually Stephen Amell's cousin, Robbie Amell, from Duff. And
I see.
This character is a new part of like, they found someone else who was that role.
Okay.
I see. So, I don't know, though. Maybe there must be the two new characters with...
I guess.
I don't know.
But that was weak for me. Mm-hmm. I wasn't really invested, and they didn't really give me time to invest in them. I'll speak as someone... I don't remember any of these characters except for Sarah Lance.
Yep.
Because I didn't really watch any of The Flash, and I only watched some of Arrow. This pilot relies heavily on you knowing these characters.
Yeah.
You can still watch it, and they kind of have, like, these brief little, like, 1 to 2 minute snippets to kind of, like, here's who we're collecting. But if you haven't seen the background that leads them to this point, it's not as strong. I feel like people probably like it who have seen these shows to this point and know these characters and have seen them before. But for me, I was drawn to Sarah, White Canary, because that's the only character I knew. Mm-hmm. So, like, clearly I'm going to feel like, okay, I understand who this character is and what her role is in the show she was in prior.
I think you're right. I think they're assuming that people know of these characters. It's hard because in order to introduce them to people who know nothing about the characters, they'd have to spend a lot of time trying to give backstory, which a pilot, you don't necessarily have that time.
Yeah.
I agree, too. I wish they would have given Hawk, whoever they are, a lot less focus. I wish we would have gotten more focus. Like, because I thought when they broke out into groups, like, I loved Sarah's Michael and Lincoln's, like, bar fight. Like,
I loved the bar fight. That was the first part of, like, watching the pilot that I was like, oh,
yes,
I like these character dynamics.
I think Ray's, like, really, like, he's kind of like a nerdy guy too, but he's charming. I think that the action sequences are decent. I love watching Sarah fight.
Yeah,
like, she's just a great fighter. I do think Vandal Savage is, like, a compelling villain.
Does he seem kind of lame in this version, though?
He watched them fuck. Like Kyle XY, he just watched them fuck as Egyptian, in, like, an Egyptian...
But, like, so we've seen Young Justice. He's this huge dude with a giant scar on his face. He's hulked out.
I think the actor is, like...
This dude is, like, super skinny and, like...
He also has, like, a weird laugh. He reminds me of a leprechaun a little bit.
It just seems like... He seems intimidating, but kind of lame.
But also, like, it's interesting because Vandal Savage is technically the villain, but I think in the second part you get not Malcolm Merlin, sorry. He was from Arrow, too.
Oh, okay. I heard the name and I was like, am I supposed to know who this is?
I thought I wrote a note about it, but I don't think I
The bidding war for the nukes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's kind of ends up being the villain.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that certain characters, like, I'm very much drawn to. And I think I have a little bit of bias because I'd seen some of the characters prior to watching the show.
Yeah.
The thing I love about Legends, and you don't get to see it in the pilot, is that they were, like, willing to do these, like, crazy scenes that no other show would do, like, comedic stuff. I do think it gets a lot better, like, 2 or 3 seasons in.
That's what I've heard. Correct. But it's like, are you willing to invest the time to get there?
To that point.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing I just wanted to mention is this not just the pilot to Doctor Who?
Yeah, it is kind
of. You have a flying ship with time travel, literally down to the slideshow of this somebody appearing in the past. Literally the first slide is the JFK assassination.
Yeah.
Which is what we see the Doctor appearing in the background of, like, important things in time. And I was like, this dude kind of looks like David Tennant.
He did.
So I was like, I feel like they had to draw some inspiration from Doctor Who for this.
Probably.
Seemed like it.
Yeah.
Just based on the fact that I have seen the Doctor Who pilot in the past 6 months.
Yes. Favorite character, I just went Sarah. I said she's an icon.
She is an icon.
Yeah.
New suit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Favorite scene, probably the bar fight.
Bar fight.
Yeah.
I put the bar fight. I really liked the bar fight.
I did have, like, a favorite superhero moment. You might not have seen it because it was in part 2. Okay, but it's during the arms trade. They're, like, all fighting and they're swapping between them, and it gave me, like, Avengers vibes where they, like, seamlessly can go through all the characters.
Yeah, I did pick that scene, and I watched it in the review, and they did show that quite a bit. It, like, was pretty, like, one shot, like, rotating between the characters, and it looked really cool, so I picked that.
And then I said, would I watch again? Yes, I did.
Would I watch based on this pilot? No.
That's fair.
I'm aware that the show does improve, but if I saw only this pilot, again, because it's 2 parts and it was separated by a full week.
Yeah.
Is this premise going to draw me in? And I
Probably
think
not.
the answer is no, unfortunately.
It is, a lot of people, it's, like, one of their favorite Arrowverse shows just because, like, the later seasons.
I was going to say, I know it gets good, but it's like...
Yeah, you got to get there, though.
Yeah, you got to get there.
I think next might actually be Black Lightning.
So, Black Lightning aired in 2018 and ran through 2021, and it got canceled after 4 seasons. I don't know if there really didn't seem to be any clear indicators on why it got canceled. It was developed by Salim Akil. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. It originally was going to be on Fox and had a different...
Oh, really?
Yeah, it had a different pilot script, but Fox passed on it, so the CW picked it up and they kind of reworked the pilot. The showrunners wanted there to be an authentic Black voice, so the writing staff is primarily African American. So they wanted the character of Jefferson Pierce, who plays Black Lightning, to be, quote, the Obama of supers. That was their inspiration. Also, the character of Thunder, who is one of his daughters, is the first Black lesbian superhero on television. Just,
Cool. Love to
representation matters.
Yes, it does.
The pilot had 2.31 million viewers, which is less than, Arrow and Flash and them. Season 4 dropped significantly and had an average of 0.52 million, so about 500,000 viewers. The series itself had a 95% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, a 6.1 out of 10 on IMDb, and the pilot has a 7.5 out of 10. So the show originally was not a part of the Arrowverse. It was from the get-go, they were like, it's a separate entity, it exists on its own. However, in season 3, it did cross over. Yep. Once the Infinite Earth stuff started.
Yeah.
Because it takes place in a different universe than the other shows. All right, now I have my summary. Jefferson Pierce seems like your average principal dad, but under the surface, electricity is pulsing. In a world of violence and death, he must rise above his ex-wife's hatred of his path to justice, except when it's their daughters kidnapped and then it's cool to use violence. Oh, and Richard from Sex and the City is a tailor.
When I saw Richard,
I
I lost my shit.
I was like, it's Richard!
I was like, Alyssa's gonna be so excited.
I watched this with my roommate, just, like, over dinner, and I was like, it's Richard! I was like, you don't know, it's Richard. And it's the dad from Dexter, and it's Cora's dad from Legend of Korra. We love him.
Love him. This pilot was very heavy.
It is very heavy, but I was very intrigued.
I actually
intrigued.
I think I watched this pilot years ago because I wanted to get into Black Lightning because I knew at one point it would cross over.
Yeah.
And out of all the pilots, it was one of the most where I felt like very on edge a lot of the time.
Yeah.
The stakes felt really high.
I know that they said that they drew a lot of inspiration from real world things going on, like Black Lives Matter and police brutality,
right.
and things that are and, like at the time and currently affecting like the Black community.
Like there's like racial profiling,
gang violence,
right? Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think I really like the family unit.
I do too.
I like the relationship between the two daughters. I like it's kind of this weird relationship between him and his ex-wife.
Yeah,
where they're kind of like.
They're flirting.
They're flirty. They obviously have like a decent relationship where they can communicate with each other.
Right.
But she also is like you said, she's against him using his powers. But then the scene where he's like, "I'm gonna go get our girls," and she's like, "Okay."
Yeah. She's like, "Okay." Well,
she's like, "It's
fine now."
which fair?
Yeah,
I mean, if your kids were in danger,
it.
you know.
Yeah, I get it.
I thought that Tobias, I think his name was Tobias, the villain. I actually thought he was like pretty compelling. I watched a man get eaten by piranhas.
I was like, I didn't need to see that. I didn't need to see a man getting eaten by piranhas, but here we are. That villain, he's a rapper. I can't remember his name. I looked this up and then I forgot to write it down. My bad. Definitely intimidating.
Yeah.
Just solely based on, he harpooned a man.
Oh, yeah. That was intense.
Just, a lot of blood. A lot of gratuitous, like, shower blood.
Yeah, the flashback scenes.
Yes, to get the water washing away the sins.
Yeah.
But I like this is the concept that I like, that we also saw in Supergirl, is it's like, he is officially the oldest lead superhero in a show. He's, in his 40s. This character, maybe 50s, I don't remember. But, like, when this premiered, he was, like, he has already been a superhero or vigilante, I don't know, for a long time. It
had been 9 years since he had used his powers.
Yeah, so he already had established these powers,
right.
And he was lying dormant, ready to strike.
It's interesting too because you never find out how he got his lightning powers, which I think they probably go to later on.
Probably, and then I was like, do we get Static Shock in this show? Because I, remember watching Static Shock as a child. Like, that was on, I think that was on the WB.
I think so.
Yeah. I remember liking that show.
Yeah. I think the acting's really good.
I think so, too.
And maybe one of the strongest, like, group of actresses.
Yeah. There's a lot of tension.
Yeah.
There's a scene where this guy shows up to the high school and, like, has a gun.
Right.
And it's, like, he has to, like, de-escalate the situation.
De-escalate.
It's a lot of word flubbing today.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a really well done pilot. I really liked it.
I do too. I would agree.
Yeah.
I said favorite character was either Jefferson or his older daughter, Anissa.
Yeah, I liked his older daughter. I put Black Lightning as my best character.
My favorite scene was actually when Richard was introduced, just because I was so happy to see Richard.
I actually put the scene with the guy with the gun at the high school.
Yeah.
Because it was very, very tense, and, like, I was very invested, and I'm like,
yeah.
And it, like, really drew me in.
That's what I meant by, like, high stakes. It felt like it was very serious consequences.
Yeah, very serious consequences.
Favorite superhero moment was actually the first time we saw him, like, use his lightning outside the club when the police officers were like, let's tase this man for no reason.
Yeah, because that makes sense.
Because that makes sense. Yeah. And then he basically tased them back and blew up their car. And I was like, okay.
I picked when he, like, puts on the suit for the first time. His quips as his quips in suit were a little, ugh.
But he's also, like, a dad, so I'm like, it's dad humor.
Yeah, I guess, but I was like, his quip's not working for me, and I'm like, but, sure, he's a dad.
I said watch again based off the pilot, yes.
Yes.
I think it's intriguing enough.
I was gonna say, based solely on that pilot, I would watch more.
Yeah.
I think.
Alright, next should be Batwoman.
Okay.
That was the year after.
Yep.
Alright, so Batwoman came out in 2019. Currently still running. It's 3 seasons and 49 episodes. It has a 3.4 out of 10 on IMDb, which is a little bit brutal. And 82% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is interesting. So it was developed by Carolyn Dries on the CW, and it is part of the Arrowverse. Pilot released on October 6, 2019, and had 1.86 million viewers. So development began in 2018 when it was announced that Kate Kane, aka Batwoman, would appear in an Arrowverse crossover event, and Ruby Rose was casted as that role. This is where things get a little bit interesting.
Also, I learned that Ruby Rose uses she/they pronouns, just so you know.
Nice.
Because I was curious. I was reading an article, and they kept saying they, them, and I'm like, oh. So, just good to know. So you know. Yeah.
So the intention was to cast an out lesbian actress for this role. Mm-hmm. But the casting of Ruby Rose was met with a lot of criticism, mostly because DC Comics had reintroduced the character in 2006 as a lesbian of Jewish descent. People were upset that Ruby Rose, 1, wasn't Jewish, and 2, identifies as gender fluid, which some people said made her not gay enough for the role.
Okay.
You know.
Yep.
So that led Rose to leave Twitter and deactivate comments on her Instagram. So the first season follows Kate Kane, who is the cousin of Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. Second season follows former convict Ryan Wilder as Batwoman. So in 2020, Ruby Rose announced that she would be leaving the show before the second season. Mm-hmm. She mentioned being the lead of a series was very taxing, and also she severely hurt her back on set and just had a lot of issues.
She was almost paralyzed.
Yeah, so it was just very emotionally and physically taxing / draining. At that point, they wanted to find a new Batwoman that was still a part of the LGBTQ community. They wanted to stay true to that trait, I guess, of the character. Mm-hmm. At this point, they casted Javicia Leslie, who made her the first black person to play that character in the DC universe. Okay. There was a lot of controversy on the working conditions and workplace safety, because Ruby Rose had a really bad spinal injury. And then a production assistant was paralyzed after a bucket lift was lowered onto her head.
Yeah.
The show has been nominated for awards, a lot of GLAAD awards for both actresses who played the role. Okay, so here's my summary.
Okay.
Welcome to Gotham, where the city is a mess and the rules don't matter. Kate Kane, cousin of Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, has returned to try and make her father proud. It turns out he lied to her and sent her away for no reason. After learning this, Kate decides to forge her own path and become the city's newest protector. It's a big family reunion as she comes face to face with her supposed dead sister, Alice in Wonderland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what to think about this pilot, though.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
At times I felt like the writing was really strong, and then at times I felt really awkward and stiff.
I would agree. At certain points, I don't think Ruby Rose is, an amazing actress.
Yep.
But I don't think they're terrible by any means.
No.
It's just, I think some of it's writing. Certainly some of it could be just, acting choices, directing, stylistic choices, for sure, but...
I think, too, one of my biggest concerns or issues is, a lot of the side characters, don't get developed really at all.
No.
And they just feel really, just in there to have people in the scenes.
In the scenes, yeah. I do think it's an interesting dynamic to look at, being LGBTQ in, a military setting, and Sophie is, I need this is all I have, so I'm willing to, put aside everything to have this.
Yeah.
And then you find out she's married.
To a generic white man.
To a generic white man. I really liked her, adoptive sister, too. I thought that dynamic was really interesting.
Mary, yeah.
She's just having, a underground secret doctor clinic. Also, cotton candy shots. Where do we get these?
I don't know.
I was really into that. Definitely had a real, heavily implied Alice in Wonderland tropes. And I'm like, Tigress? And Cheshire?
Yeah.
Cheshire showing up?
Cheshire.
Please?
Cheshire?
Where's Cheshire? Please. Give her to us. We want her. I don't know, the fact that it's hey, Batman didn't save you, so your mom and sister died. I don't know, I didn't think the setup was super great.
Yeah.
For the, that aspect of it.
It's maybe the most conflicted I felt about a
Yeah.
pilot.
But, like, the superhero moment was great.
Yeah.
I loved the superhero, like, her coming in the suit.
Yeah.
Yeah. The phrasing was a little...
Literally.
little eek. Sorry. It's late and I'm tired. I think it's middle. It's a middle road. Middle tier.
It wasn't
pilot.
bad, it wasn't amazing.
Yeah.
Favorite character, I went with Kate.
Yep. Same.
I said that, like, she basically just wants to be wanted, and her dad couldn't give a shit about her.
Mm-hmm.
She plays by her own rules, and she's like, I'm gonna do this my way.
Yeah, same thing. I liked it. I like that she's like, yeah, I'm never gonna be good enough for you, and I'm just gonna have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did have a favorite scene. I like the ending scene when Kate realized that Alice is actually Beth.
Yeah. I liked that, and I also really liked that fight, the hostage fight above the drive-in theater.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the Batman pole where she, like, grapple. She grapple hooks the people and they go flying, like, in classic Batman fashion. And the silhouette of Batman's here. I really liked that. I thought that was well done.
Yeah, superhero moment was the suit. Mm-hmm. Just her in the suit.
Yeah.
Comes in the suit, like Alyssa said.
Maybe. I don't know.
Honestly,
I mean, that's her kink.
You never know. Watch.
I say, okay, here's the deal. Considering what I know about the show, the fact that it basically reboots after one season, I don't want to invest in that.
Although I know people like the rebooted, so maybe I would just go and skip to the second season.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, it's not worth it for me.
It's hard because I did watch a couple episodes, but then I stopped. So I'm like, do I really want to do that again? I'd probably say no.
Yeah, I went with no. So, Stargirl. So Stargirl premiered in 2020. It has currently run for 2 seasons, and it was renewed for a 3rd season that will air sometime this year. It premiered on the DC streaming service first, before it aired on the CW. But then it aired reruns onto the CW. It was created by Jeff Johns. This universe is a parallel Earth to the Arrowverse, although Stargirl did have a cameo in a crossover, but they're kind of existing on a different plane. The character of Stargirl has appeared in both Smallville and Legends of Tomorrow as different actresses. Mm-hmm. So the portrayal is completely new, a new actress for this specific role. Her name's Breck Bassinger. So the pilot aired on May 18th, 2020, and then it aired later on the CW. However, they cut content for commercials. So the pilot that aired on CW was missing, like, 8 minutes of scenes. They cut out, like, the scene of her looking at the stuff in the basement. Like, they cut that scene down. They, like, cut her mom's shot at her new job. Like, they just cut a bunch of stuff down, and I'm like, but why?
Yeah.
Just make it longer. Just make it, like, an hour and 30-minute slot or something. So the pilot had 1.77 million views and had an 8 out of 10 on IMDb. Season 1 has an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.6 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes, 68 out of 100 Metacritic, 7.2 out of 10 on IMDb. Season 2 had an average of 1.19 million, so, like, not a super significant drop from Season 1 to Season 2. Roughly speaking. So, here goes my summary. Luke Wilson must watch everyone he cares for die in a scene that seems like a Scooby-Doo mystery. In doing so, he then must pass the torch from Jeff Winger of Greendale Community College to his daughter Courtney, who is now Luke Wilson's stepdaughter. ? She tries to fit in to small-town Nebraska the correct way by blowing up her classmates' cars. So, I feel like this pilot wanted to be Guardians of the Galaxy, wanted to be Thor 3, wanted to have these, like, humor, sarcastic, making fun of themselves tropes. But I don't think it necessarily worked.
It feels very high school and...
Not in a bad way.
Not in the way that, like, Smallville did.
Yeah.
It's, like, too teenager for me. The only thing I cared about was that the town they moved to is the birthplace of Wade Boggs. I said it's always sunny.
I did too. Also, it is where Wally West is traditionally from. The Kid Flash. Yes, Kid Flash, is that city? But yeah, I saw the Wade Boggs and I was like, it's always sunny. The Wade Boggs challenge.
I will say Luke Wilson plays awkward stepdad really well.
Luke Wilson's great. You can't go wrong with Luke Wilson.
I had a really big issue with the fact that pretty much every interaction in this episode was between Courtney and the stepdad.
Yeah.
Like, there were so many interactions between the two of them, and they didn't have any interactions between, like, anyone else.
Also, I called that her dad was Starman.
I did, too.
Really early on.
I wrote a note about that.
It's really obvious.
Well, because the way they cut to her on Christmas, and she's like, he's not coming.
Also, we get a villain known as Icicle. Is he Icicle Jr.'s father, perhaps?
Oh.
The other one, I'm like, is Brainwave Simon? But I looked it up and they're different characters. I feel like I approved of the soundtrack. I thought the soundtrack was good. I feel like they threw a lot at you in this pilot. Like, you get this elaborate backstory where all of the not the Justice League, the Justice it's not Society. Justice Society, where it's just like, everyone died.
Right.
And you're like, what? And I'm like, what is Luke Wilson doing? He just exists. And then they, like, are mean to him. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, Joel McHale's like, not you. Please not you.
I actually kind of thought that was funny. I did laugh.
The delivery works, I think.
I think just because it's Joel McHale.
Just because it's Joel McHale. Yeah. But then it's just like, I don't know. You're moving to this new town. I don't think it worked super well.
The writing was, like, really weak, too.
Yeah.
It, like, was not good.
Wasn't... like, invested, I think.
I wasn't either. Let's just go into favorites.
Okay.
I said favorite character was Pat. Luke Wilson.
Stripesy?
Stripesy.
Okay.
I think he was just trying to look out for Courtney and trying to protect his family, which, you know.
Yeah. I also picked Luke Wilson as well. I mean, I like Luke Wilson, so that's really about it.
I didn't really have a favorite line or scene.
I liked her blowing up the car.
Okay. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I was like, okay.
Favorite superhero moment I put, because it was so cheesy, when she was doing the gymnastic spins on the staff.
I liked where she just got dragged out her window, from her bedroom.
Yeah. I would not watch it again.
I said meh. I'm not sure it can carry based solely on just the pilot, is how I feel.
Okay.
All right.
Wait, hold on.
Okay, you can do it, Hannah.
Hold on.
I believe in you.
Let me find out where I watched four TV shows today, so
you can do it.
Superman and Lois.
Okay.
Aired in 2021, and it's currently 2 seasons and 20 episodes. Had an 8.10 out of 8 out of 10 on IMDb, and 88% on the Rotten Tomatoes, and 65% out of 100 on Metacritic. It is set in the Arrowverse. Pilot aired on February 23rd, 2021. Had 1.75 million viewers and was directed by Lee Krieger. The show was said to be inspired by Everwood and Friday Night Lights.
Okay. I can see the Friday Night Lights. Yeah.
Producers said that they approached the show as if it was a feature film.
Certainly. Both
in regards to cinematography and production design, also in length of episode.
This pilot was over an hour long. I saw that and I was like, oh no.
Yeah. It's not Game of Thrones.
No.
Tyler Hoechlin and Elizabeth Tolick reprised their roles of Clark Kent and Lois Lane as they were introduced on Supergirl.
Okay.
The two. First season was delayed due to COVID, as was all of our lives.
Yep.
And everything.
Everything.
One of the writers from the show from the first season was actually fired.
Oh.
She claimed it was because she tried to push back on racist and sexist storylines.
Oh.
But they haven't... There's no confirmation if that's true or not. So that's great.
We love that.
Love that. There also was a lack of Arrowverse connections in the first season. Producer has said it's due to COVID restrictions and being able to bring actors and actresses on in film.
Right.
Pilot was the second best premiere of any CW show since Batwoman in October of 2019. Here's my summary. Breaking Bad meets Euphoria in Smallville, Kansas. Clark Kent, aka Superman, returns to his hometown with his wife Lois and sons Jonathan and Jordan. He soon realizes the town is not quite what it used to be. Parents are cooking meth, everyone is leaving, and the bank is tied up with a conveniently placed plot point in Morgan Edge. Clark must juggle his family, saving the world, and fighting a non-charismatic Iron Man.
Oh. I like it.
I weirdly like this pilot.
I do too. So, I think this... Because we had Smallville, which is, Clark Kent as a teenager.
Yep.
Growing into his powers and his abilities and stuff. Then we get the normal iterations of Superman, where he's this established superhero. In this one, it's like... You don't really see the, like, parent dynamic. Like, struggling to be a good parent while also saving the world. And, like, I liked that one comment Lois's dad has where he's like, I told you when you married him, like, you can't have it both ways.
Like you knew what you were getting into.
You knew what you were getting into. Like, and I weirdly thought it, for the most part, worked pretty well.
It did. I think it was the most visually stunning of any pilot. I can see they put
one shot where he flies through the wall. And it's like slow-mo. Yeah. That was really cool.
You could tell that they maybe had a bigger budget.
Yeah.
I think that the acting was pretty good. I really liked that they introduced, like, his son who has, like, mental health and, like, this anxiety disorder. And I didn't really expect to like this pilot that much. I don't know why I expected that. I think Tyler Hoechlin, who plays Superman, is, like, pretty good in that role. And I like that, like, this hero, it feels like he's failing as a father, and he seems perfect to the world who see him as Superman, but in his personal life, like, he feels like he's, like, not doing well.
He's letting his family down. Him and Lois have disagreements over whether or not they should have told them, but, like, they stand united, like, together, like, with whatever the decision is kind of deal. Like, she'll push back. And the one scene I just want to touch on, we go to a quarry party, throw things in the quarry. So he meets this girl that they interacted with briefly several years ago, I guess, at some point. Then she just is, like, very upfront about, like, how she took a bunch of pills and essentially, I'm assuming, insinuating she tried to commit suicide. And then he tries to kiss her, and then she has a boyfriend, and it leads to, like, a dramatic fight. And I was just like... The series of events that led here, it is Euphoria. Like, they even said Euphoria. Like,
they did.
They was like, it's like Euphoria, and I was like, yeah, it is. It is. Oh boy.
I think it was interesting. Like, it was just a lot of, like, family dynamic.
Yeah.
A lot of the interactions that took place were between the 4 family members.
Right.
And I think that was nice to see. I was very engaged, though. Like,
I was too.
I had a hard time picking a favorite character because I felt like there were
a lot of strong
characters, and, like, I was a little bit confused because Captain Luthor, so that was Lex Luthor at the end.
I guess.
I don't know. The Iron Man looking
alternative reality.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
I'm unclear.
I didn't really understand that.
Looks like the guy from Halo.
Yeah.
It's like Green Man, but a gray blob instead.
Yeah, I said meth cookers in Smallville. This really is Euphoria. Yeah, it was a little bit weird. I liked the interaction between the 2 brothers. Yeah, I just thought it was, like, a nice pilot.
Yeah, I liked it.
Favorite character, I'm gonna go with Lois.
I picked Lois as well.
Yeah, I think because she's trying to make it so that Clark doesn't feel bad because she knows he has responsibilities and, like, saving the world, but she's also trying to, like, when her dad comes and he's like, we need him, she's like, no, he needs to be with his family right now. Like,
he needs to be.
I think she does a good job of trying to, like, be supportive of him, but also being, like, stern in that, like, the fact that his family does need him. So the favorite line, I guess, slash scene is at the beginning when he's, like, in his first costume. And so, someone's like, oh, I like your costume. He's like, oh, thanks, my mom made it for me.
I liked that one, too. That was funny.
Did you have one specifically, or?
I just liked a lot of the, like, downtime, like, him trying to be a parent, trying to communicate and, like, connect with his kids. Yeah. In a way that he doesn't feel like he's able to.
I said favorite superhero moment was when he was lifting, like, that giant ice block over his head.
Oh, I liked that slow-mo fly through the wall. My eyes were immediately like, I'm drawn.
And if just off the pilot, I would watch again.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Based on the pilot, it'd make me want to watch more. The problem is I don't know how well that story is going to work going forward, being in, Yeah. But again, Smallville. It's like, takes place in Smallville. All right. Now we have the last one. Naomi. That says everything you need to know. Naomi premiered in 2022, this year, on January 11th, 2022. I think there are currently 5 episodes out. The show was created by Ava DuVernay and Jill Blankenship. So it's based on a comic book series of the same name, Naomi. Her superhero alias is usually known as Powerhouse. The comic series was created in 2019, so pretty recently. The pilot had an average 0.8 million views, so 800,000 views for the pilot. It also had 313,000 streams on the first day. They just had streaming data specifically for the pilot. Rotten Tomatoes, it has a score of 90%. It has a 72 out of 100 on Metacritic, a 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb, and the pilot specifically has a 5.9 out of 10 on IMDb. That's all the information I have because it's literally just started. So I have my summary. Naomi is your average popular teen, living her best life being a Superman superfan until he has a fight in her hometown and she falls unconscious. Weird things start happening to her, and she must meet a tattooist with wings to master all 4 elements and defeat the Fire Nation.
This pilot makes no fucking sense.
I understand what they were going for, but the execution did not work.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, the execution did not work.
It was executed very poorly.
Yeah.
I just think that, like, the camera shots were so bizarre. I was having a really hard time with the shaky cam.
These camera angles, though, why are we always looking up your chin?
Yeah.
I'm a wolf.
She had 3 love interests, which, good for her.
Yeah, it's a love square.
She's a skater girl. She said, "See you later, girl."
Oh, here's a comment. Her being able to see without her glasses is me when I load up on carrots and hope it'll improve my vision. I just put my glasses up and down. Is it working?
It's just like, this pilot was so chaotic.
Like, she has wind power? I don't know what her powers are. I don't understand.
I was confused because I was wondering if she was supposed to be from Krypton. Like, was she supposed to have Superman's powers because she could see really well? Yeah. But then she could, like, move the leaves?
Yeah. I did, like, the one scene I really liked was the teen stakeout.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the beforehand bit where they're, like, he's like, we should have code names.
Yeah. And then he said something about, like, my precious.
Yeah.
I think the problem, too, they introduced so many characters, but they didn't do it properly.
Yeah, no.
So it felt very chaotic.
I also really don't like this tattoo parlor man.
No.
He's, like, very bland, and he's trying to be this, like, mysterious, like...
He's a predator.
Brooding man, but it's just, like, doesn't work.
I do think the concept was interesting, but they just really fumbled the bag on it.
Just the execution was not well done. Considering we get to the end of the pilot and you don't know anything.
No.
Like, let me go back to Arrow's pilot, for example. You get a tease. You know he's on this island. Their ship crashes. His dad kills himself in a raft because could he not just jump overboard?
That was really traumatic to Oliver to kill the guy and himself.
Yeah, like, could you not just, like, I don't know, because if he didn't want his body in the ocean? I don't know. Could you not, like, shoot yourself in the head?
Or wait till you get to the island and then do it.
Or just, like, roll over. Get out in the water. I don't know. Anyway, back to the point I was trying to make is that pilot gives you enough to, like, tickle your fancy, sets it up, the mystery and intrigue, that because you're going to get flashbacks for 5 seasons, apparently. It sets you up for that. And it does it well. This one, it's just, like, you see a newspaper article, this dude knows her birth adoption date, weird shit's been happening in this town, her parents are acting sketchy, and then this dude has mechanical wings, and that's how we end. And I'm like...
He's like, what is the question? I was like, obviously it's who am I?
What is the question?
I could have told you that.
It's just, like, We got a That's So Raven style intro. I really liked
Oh, the intro was actually really fun.
Yeah, it was.
It was very like 2000s.
It really made me think of That's So Raven with like the flashing colors and the lights and stuff. It's a shame because I think like it's important to have like a diverse cast of superheroes, and you know, she's a teenage, you know, black lead.
Yeah.
I feel bad that the pilot just did not in any way, shape, or form help the character or make me care about this show.
I think it's kind of a shame that I'm thinking about where I place shows that most of the ones that are centered on like a female lead, I think are the weakest. Most of them.
Which sucks.
Which does suck.
And then it's like, is this a perception of the fact that we have...
I think they're just shitty shows.
I just want to use the word generally... We're expected to see shows that don't represent us.
Right.
That's just the norm. The norm is that when shows do represent us, are they done well? The amount of shows that are, like, focused on the leads being men, there's so many of them that it's like, yeah, of course some are good and some are going to be bad, but when there's less shows women-centered, it's like the ratio is not there.
Yeah, I get that, but I also just think these shows were shitty.
Anyway, so it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm like, I don't know if I'm biased.
Maybe the show gets better, but I don't think the pilot's a good representation of what the show is.
Whoever wrote this pilot, no.
Okay.
What are you doing?
My favorite character was Naomi.
Yeah, she seems cool.
No one else was compelling. I did have a favorite line. It was my man in the tattoo shop saying,
I'm not comfortable with confrontation.
I said, same.
I literally heard that and I immediately wrote it down. And I'm like,
that's me.
Yep, I feel that.
I didn't really pick a favorite scene. Oh, I guess the little stakeout with the teens.
Yeah, I liked the stakeout, and I guess the superhero moment. There really wasn't a superhero moment.
I said scene in the woods by default because of
I said the blurry Superman fight, I guess.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of... They didn't introduce a lot
I don't
of...
know, just like... Yeah, didn't really have that.
I unfortunately would not watch this again. I don't think it's compelling enough.
No, I said the pilot didn't really hook me, so probably not.
Alright, let's get into rankings because...
Let's do it. I'm ready to go to bed.
I have it on my phone.
I'm tired.
Okay.
So number 10, I have Naomi. I just don't think the pilot was strong. It just really didn't hook me. It wasn't super compelling, unfortunately, and I still don't really have an understanding of who this character is or what the goal or the power set or what any of it means. And if you can't do that in the pilot, then, like, that's a problem for a superhero pilot.
Yeah. I put Stargirl, actually, as number 10. I said it feels like way too high school for me to enjoy it. It's very disjointed in spots, and I wanted more character interactions. The writing feels very weak, and a lot of characters don't get, like, a proper introduction. And the action sequences were pretty lacking in terms of, like, a wow factor.
Yeah, number 9, I did Stargirl. I agree. I think it actually has a pretty good cast, like, I mean, of characters. You know, Luke Wilson stuff, but yeah, I think there's some issues with, like, writing and just the structure of this show that I just am not really drawn to.
Yeah. Number 9, I had Naomi. The reason it's above Stargirl is because I think the concept is smarter. I just think that they really didn't execute pretty much everything properly. Mm-hmm. It's just weird, it feels chaotic, and it's kind of predictable writing. Camera work was weird, and the side characters are just there.
Number 8, I have Batwoman. I don't think this pilot is bad. I just don't think it's super strong. And I wasn't, like, as attached to the characters as I was in some of the other pilots.
Yeah. Number 8, I have Batwoman as well. I think that the action sequences were pretty well done. I just don't think the side characters are compelling. I just think the writing, too, was, like, either very hit or miss for me.
So number 7, I have Legends of Tomorrow. The only reason it's this low is because I don't think it works without the prior knowledge of these shows. And it's like, if you're going to create a spin-off show, like, for instance, Flash, I can watch that pilot not having seen his 2 episodes in Arrow, and I have not lost anything. You get the added context that, like, oh, he went on a trip to, you know, Star City, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't, like, impact my ability to understand and follow the pilot. Whereas in this one, I feel like me not knowing some of these characters and how they've been introduced to these shows, like, hinders my ability to, like, fully immerse myself in this pilot.
Yeah, number 7, this one was, like, really weird. I put Smallville as number 7, and only because I felt like I was giving it too much credit for being nostalgic because it was, like, from the 2000s. But I do think it's really compelling. I think the acting was a little bit cringy at times. But there are enough interesting side characters to, like, keep me intrigued, and I think the action sequences were decent for the 2000s. But I think because I thought I was being biased, I put it lower.
Yeah. So number 6, I have Supergirl. I like this pilot. I think it works. I think there's maybe just a few problems here or there, but I just don't think it's as strong for me as some of the other ones.
Flash, I put Flash as 6. I think it's a solid pilot. I think it's disjointed, though, and I think that it's, like, kind of just average. Like, I feel like there's good side characters and there's drama there, but it's just not bad, but not amazing to me.
So number 5, I have Superman and Lois. I really, really liked this pilot. I thought it was really well done. However, it's just not my favorite. If I put them all in a line, there are some I just like better for other reasons, but I thought it was a really well done pilot.
Yeah, I put 5 as Superman and Lois. I think it, to me, was the most visually appealing pilot. The acting was pretty good. The writing feels really solid for a CW show, which was one of the most impressive things to me. And I had a lot of choices for best character, which I love to have that in a pilot.
So number 4, I have Smallville. I don't care. I'll put it this high. It's just so charming. It's super cheesy, and sure, the animation doesn't necessarily hold up because it was 20 years ago. Like, it premiered over 20 years ago. Yeah. So, I don't know. I really enjoyed the experience. Like, I was losing my mind at some of these scenes, just about how ridiculous it was. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Number 4, I did Legends of Tomorrow, and I get where you're coming from, but I think I was coming from the perspective of someone who knew some of these side characters going into it. So I think in that way, I was excited because you get to learn more about characters that don't get a lot of time. Similar to, like, WandaVision with, like, Marvel.
Right.
But I think they did a decent job of mixing all the characters together, for the most part. Minus Hawkeye, Hawkgirl, whatever scenes. Plus, I just love Sarah Lance.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So number 3, I have Black Lightning. The pilot was really, really well done. I thought it handled, like, tension and stakes the best out of any of the pilots. I think there might have been a few issues with some writing and pacing things, but it was very intriguing, and as a character I was not familiar with before this, I was most intrigued with him as, like, and the show as, like, a new show.
Number 3, I put Supergirl. I'm probably really biased because this is, like, the show I'm most invested in out of these shows. But I remember watching this pilot for the first time, and, like, it made me want to keep watching the show. I think it's intriguing, and I think, like, the character dynamic is really good, especially between Kara and Alex.
Number 2, I have The Flash. I really like this pilot. I think it works really well standalone. Like I said, I think the fact that it was supposed to be a backdoor pilot and they were like, no, we like this so much, we're just going to make a bigger budget and make it its own standalone thing. And I think it really works. I think the introduction of all these characters work really well, and a lot of these dynamics, like, are introduced in a way that makes sense. I do think that the ending was a little anticlimactic, but I'm willing to look past that for the pilot.
Number 2, I have Black Lightning. It's, like, a very heavy pilot, but I think the acting's really good. There's a compelling villain. I like that Jefferson's been out of the game for a while. He's not, like, just, like, a established hero. And I think that the stakes feel very high, and, like, I can already see a lot of the conflict that will come up, and that makes me excited about the show.
Number 1, I have Arrow. I'm sure it's biased, maybe, but I remember how hooked I was from watching this pilot, and I was just as thoroughly engaged 10 years later than I was when I watched it for the first time. I think the pilot is really, really well done. I think it introduces this character in a way that makes sense. It introduces, what is this show going to be about? What mysteries are there to unlock? These character dynamic. The introduction of Diggle, like, he was a new character. Like, not even in the comics. Like, they just were like, hey, you know what? Sounds good. Let's add this bodyguard. And, like, he becomes an integral part of the show eventually. And we love Diggle. And we don't even have Felicity in the pilot.
Oh.
And it's still great. I just think it works the best as a superhero pilot.
Yeah, I mean, number 1's Arrow. It's the show that started off why I watched all these shows in the first place. And I remember the pilot, like, a couple of years ago, I was thinking about TV pilots I really enjoyed, and I thought of Arrow. And I agree with you. It still holds up, like, 10 years later. I think there's a bit of nostalgia in it as well, but I do think, like, character interactions are good. I think there's a lot of intrigue, and I think the humor is really good in it, too.
Yeah.
I think it's just overall probably the most solid pilot for me.
I would agree.
All right.
And that's Salmon Ladder, though.
No, that's Salmon Ladder. Do you want to just run through yours really
quick? Sure. Number 10, I have Naomi, then Stargirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Batwoman. Oh, sorry, I did these out of order. Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, Superman and Lois, Black Lightning. Fuck. I
missed Smallville.
I switched the orders on a bunch of these.
Just not run through them.
Arrow's number 1.
Okay.
I'm done now.
Yeah, Arrow's number 1 for me, too. I'm just not going to run through it. Okay.
My orders got...
It's fine.
I switched... Can't remember.
It's 1:30. Alyssa's got to wake up in, like, 4 hours.
I gotta go fly away.
Yes.
Like Superman.
There we go.
I'm Superman? I'm Superwoman... Girl?
Supergirl.
Superwoman.
Superwoman.
Anyway, this was fun. This is maybe the best time management I've had. Not for you. For me.
No, I watched 4 episodes in a day.
I did pretty good. I think the most I ever did was 2 in a day. Yeah. Definitely a lot of time to go into these ones.
Yeah.
And we're going to have 2 kind of more low-key episodes coming up this month.
Yeah. But yeah, next week is a continuation of a series.
Yes. There's a new movie coming out soon.
Yes.
And we will have to update our pre-existing lists.
New ranking.
If
you want to follow us on social media, we have our Instagram and Twitter. We have our email, r3podcast@gmail.com. Let us know how much you loved Naomi.
Yeah, sorry.
Or love
Sorry,
Arrow.
Naomi fans.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Not there for us.
But yeah, we'll be back next week with new things.
Mm-hmm.
And
we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.
We would like to thank Joseph McDade for our intro music. He provides free music available for all kinds of creative use. The song that we used is called Sunrise Expedition, and you can find it and his other music on his website, josephmcdade.com. If you would like to reach us, you can email us at r3podcasts@gmail.com. That's R, the number 3, podcasts@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Instagram by searching Research Rank Repeat.